In today's class, we will learn about respiration. Okay. So first of all, we should know what is respiration. So respiration is a chemical reaction where it takes place in living cell. And what happens during respiration? Energy is released from glucose. So whenever the living cell, energy is being released from the glucose, that process is called respiration. And we know that all living organism needs energy. Is it clear? And that energy we get from the process of respiration. Okay. Now respiration are of two types. So what is the respiration? It is aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. Is it clear? There are two types of respiration, aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Okay. From the name itself, we understand that aerobic respiration means in presence of air or oxygen. So when the living cell releases energy from glucose in presence of oxygen, that process is called respiration. Is it clear? So let's see. So it is what? Of course, it is a chemical reaction where it is taking place, same in the living cell. And what is happening here? Here the glucose molecules is used to release energy, but in presence of oxygen. Okay. So what happens here? Okay, a glucose molecule is break down in presence of oxygen to give energy. So the most important point in aerobic respiration is presence of oxygen. That means the respiration takes place only in presence of oxygen. Now let's see what is the product form during the aerobic respiration. So whenever glucose reacts with oxygen, carbon dioxide, water, these are the two products formed and energy is released. So if this happens, aerobic respiration takes place in all living cell, and most of our energy requirement is fulfilled by this aerobic respiration. That is why we know that more energy is released during aerobic respiration. This statement we are talking in compared to anaerobic respiration. Okay. So what do I mean by more energy is released? It means that more energy is released during aerobic respiration compared to anaerobic respiration. Is it clear? Now, the next thing which we should know about aerobic respiration is its equation. So glucose is C6H12O6. When it reacts with 6 oxygen molecule, 6 carbon dioxide and 6 water molecule will form along with the energy. So this is the chemical balance equation of aerobic respiration, and this is called word equation. Okay. So the points you need to remember is that where it takes place in all living cell. What happened? Energy is released from glucose. Is there any condition needed? Yes, here oxygen is must. So in presence of oxygen, glucose molecule will release energy, and what are the two product form? Carbon dioxide and water. Now we will understand the second type of respiration, that is anaerobic respiration. So anaerobic means that this type of respiration takes place in absence of oxygen, without using oxygen. Here also energy is released from glucose, but in absence of oxygen. Anaerobic respiration takes place in the muscle cell during exercise, and also it takes place in the yeast. Is it clear? So there are two places where anaerobic respiration takes place, in yeast and in muscle. And of course in yeast the product is different during anaerobic respiration, and in muscles the product is different. Let's see. So whenever anaerobic respiration takes place in yeast, then glucose will get converted into ethanol and carbon dioxide, and energy is released. So here you see the difference. When the aerobic respiration happens, then carbon dioxide and water are the two products. Okay. But here when anaerobic respiration takes place in yeast, then glucose is converted into ethanol and carbon dioxide, and energy is released. This is the specific reaction takes place in yeast during anaerobic respiration. Okay. And the energy released during this energy which is released during anaerobic respiration is less compared to energy released during the Aerobic respiration. Okay. The next place where anaerobic respiration takes place is in the muscles. So in muscle, what happened? Glucose get converted into lactic acid. Here what happened? Glucose get converted into lactic acid during anaerobic respiration. So what are the points we need to remember about anaerobic respiration? The first and the foremost thing, that this type of respiration takes place in absence of oxygen. Okay, where it takes place? It will take place either in yeast or in muscle cells during exercise. What happens in anaerobic respiration? The glucose will break down. The glucose will break down. What are the product form? So in yeast, the product is ethanol and carbon dioxide along with energy, whereas in muscles, lactic acid is the product along with the energy. Okay. This here we will understand the oxygen depth and its removal. Okay, so what is oxygen depth? Oxygen depth is created when muscles undergo anaerobic respiration and lactic acid is formed. This lactic acid is needed to be removed, and in order to remove this lactic acid need to be oxidized, and for the oxidation of lactic acid we need extra oxygen, and the oxidation of lactic acid takes place in liver. Where lactic acid is formed? It is formed in muscle. And where is oxidation takes place? It takes place in liver. So from muscle to liver, this lactic acid is carried by blood. So what happened? After exercise, heart rate is increases. Why heart rate is increases? In order to transport this lactic acid formed during anaerobic respiration in muscle to liver through the blood. And once the lactic acid reaches the liver, person is breathing very fast and deeply after exercise in order to get more and more oxygen. So this oxygen will oxidize lactic acid in liver to glucose, and so the lactic acid get converted into glucose, and once the glucose is formed, it is stored as glycogen in liver, and in this way oxygen depth is removed. So what we need to know here, what is oxygen depth? It is the oxygen depth is created after accumulation of lactic acid in muscle after anaerobic respiration. And why do we need to remove this lactic acid? Because it is not good for health. So where this lactic acid removal takes place? It takes place in liver. How this lactic acid reached to the liver from muscle? Through the blood. And what happens in the liver? Oxidation of lactic acid takes place. For that oxidation of lactic acid, we need extra oxygen. How we get extra oxygen? By faster and deeper breaths. Okay, and what happened after oxidation of lactic acid? Glucose is formed and oxygen depth is removed. Okay, so we have discussed respiration, and we know that during respiration energy is released. Respiration is done in order to get energy. So we need to know why living organism needs energy. So living organism needs energy for many different things, like muscles contraction. So whenever the muscle contraction is done in the living organism, it needs energy. It is done with the help of energy. Now protein synthesis is also very important in living organism, and for protein synthesis also energy is needed. Cell division, you know, cell division is needed. Cell division is needed for every living cell is doing cell division. That cell division also need energy. Active transport is the process through which substance move in and out of the cell, and that process also need energy. Growth happens in all living organism, and growth also needs energy. Passage of nerve impulses, in neurons, when nerve impulses passes, that also need energy. And for maintaining the constant body temperature, living organism needs energy. So these are various places where living organism needs energy.